No doubt about it, folks. Intense smoke covering many areas in the Northeast and mid-Atlantic states. I don't think there will be any real relief until the weekend. We'll see if Joe Rayo agrees. Pockets of severe weather across the U.S., but nothing to get excited about. Other than that, we are just going to move forward tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, where visibility is never restricted. And it's brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. They've got mulch, topsoil, sand, and everything else you need to make your home or business look great. 6317-561-125 with the best prices in town. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. They've got all sorts of weather gadgets and gizmos and the latest in weather fashion. The referral link is pinned to the top of the chat board, and it's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you do make a purchase, please use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show, and you will get
10% off, believe it or not.
Yeah, exactly. And believe it or not, you disappeared off the screen, but I will bring you back. There you go. You're there, and I'm here. I think, Joe, this is a really good time to bring on your favorite and mine, Mrs. Bundy. Because if anybody knows how to get rid of the smoke, it'll be Mrs. Bundy. Remember, it's the end of the world.
Well, the bartender was the one who kept. No, it wasn't the bartender.
No, it was the local town drunk.
Yeah, exactly. It's the end of the world.
It is. Well, from everything I saw today, this has got to be, I remember covering the Suffolk wildfires and being right there where the fires were going on. And, the smoke, of course.
I was there with you.
Yes, that's right. And the smoke obscuring the sky and the sun looking like it was anything other than what it's supposed to look like. The pictures I've seen today, New York City looked like it was orange, in an orange fog all day long.
Right.
The Yankee game was canceled. The Phillies game was canceled. They, they could have. You talk about snow days. They could have used a smoke day.
Yeah, I tell you, it's amazing. And you give me a chance to, sharing capabilities.
Sure.
I think I did a little research today, and I think I found the one case where we saw something similar to that, but it was a long, long time ago, almost 73 years ago.
Wow.
And what I'm about to show you was on the front page of the New York Times way back in September of 1950. 73 years ago. And you can see it right now on your screen, I hope.
It's there.
You can see it. Forest fires cast pall on Northeast. Now, this could very easily sum up what we had here, except the smoke from this forest fire activity in 1950 came from Alberta, Canada, not from Quebec, Canada. The subtitle here, Canadian Drift, 600 miles long, darkens wide area and arouses, and remember, this is the 1950s, folks, atom fears. And to read and this is only a small snippet of the actual column, but a 200-mile wide blanket of smoke from smoldering Canadian forest fires cast an awesome pall over parts of the northeastern United States yesterday, causing consternation. When was the last time you read a newspaper article and saw that word? Consternation in countless communities as day turned to night. The smoke blanket, which plunged New York City into an eerie twilight in early afternoon, swept across the Canadian border like a great cloud. It blotted out the sun in many places. In others, it turns the sun rays into a patchwork of brilliant purple, pink, and yellow colors. Now, today we saw mostly orange. I did not see purple. I did not see pink. And, maybe a tinge of yellow. Residents of Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and other cities and towns in the path of the smoke blanket deluged police and newspaper telephone exchanges with calls for explanations of the phenomenon. Some worried folk thought there had been an atomic explosion, and some saw in the pall a sign of the world's end. That was 73 years ago. And reading this, Joe, I said to myself, well, what we had today had to be on an equal level as to what happened 73 years ago. In fact, what they describe here, it almost sounds like what happened 73 years ago might have been even a touch worse than what we had today. But
And
still,
judging by the description of what people were thinking, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, they didn't have the air quality levels that we had today, which today ranked New York as the worst city in the world to live with the worst air, something like 413 out on a scale of 0 to 500. So it really was bad today. I made a comment on Facebook that it smelled almost like, you know, a burnt pizza out there at times. It
Wow.
was really amazing. And my sister, let me also bring this picture up, if I may do
All
so.
right, bring the picture up. But before you continue, if you don't mind, I'm just going to bring up the. I got the dust loop, which, as we know, was a gift from Mr. and Mrs. W.C. Ridgway of Hollyhock, Virginia. And there's the dust loop, folks. Look at the purple here that's over northern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, most of New Jersey, Long Island, into southern New England and the Hudson Valley. The orange you see up to the north, those are clouds. Those are the clouds that have been backing southward from the storm that is still sitting somewhere in New Brunswick now. But that is that this is the first time I was looking at this loop on and off the last couple of days, and there was a little bit of purple on it yesterday. This is about as widespread in terms of coverage, and also in terms of the density here. With regards to the smoke, there's still you see the smoke down into West Virginia and down into Maryland and southern New Jersey. I pulled up the visibilities earlier, Joe, about 2 o'clock this afternoon, and I posted them on my subscription site, and there were numbers. Visibilities were all down to a mile and a quarter, or even 3/4 to a half a mile in parts of New Jersey. There were, ground stoppages at LaGuardia Airport and at Newark, uh, with flights being delayed because of the visibility restriction. Your shot is up on the screen again.
Yeah, I was trying to find out the best way to frame this. This was taken by my sister Lisa, who lives in Throgs Neck, in the Northeast Bronx. This was taken at 2:30 this afternoon, and no, she did not, alter the photograph. She did not. I mean, she was just using her iPhone, and she didn't use any kind of special orange filter. This is the way the sky appeared to her from her sixth floor terrace overlooking Eastchester Bay, again in the Throgs Neck section of the Bronx. This is incredible. I made the comment, is this Earth or is this Mars? This really was a wild shot. And I saw similar pictures of like this of the New York City skyline, this orangey effect, again, around early to mid-afternoon today. Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I saw some video taken at Central Park, and it was all orange outside. I mean, it was really crazy. Burner lady hitting the super chat tip jar, Joe. She says, "Let's get rid of this acrid air. Hope everyone is staying safe." Never, was never on my it was never on my list of possibilities that we were going to get into a situation quite like this. But today's pretty extensive in terms, and for the first time, Joe, I saw the Weather Service a dense smoke advisory.
Yeah, they're making them up. They're making them up as they move along
I
here.
know that goes right along with the low water advisory.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 states east of the Mississippi, for the most part, that have widespread air quality alert issues. And as we said, we have the dense smoke advisory for the coastal waters of Long Island and New Jersey. Also, down in North Carolina and into South Carolina, the smoke got that far south. Didn't quite. I was kind of on the edge of it. I was, looking around at the sky today, and I really didn't notice anything unusual here. So it probably, maybe the mountains are helping to shield some of it here, but they've got the air quality issue down to Murphy, North Carolina. That's only 20 miles from me, but they're in a bit of a valley, so it's quite possible that the smoke is just kind of hung up somewhere, and I was, I didn't really, see it here. And you can bet that tomorrow we'll probably have much of the same areas under um, uh, the air quality issues at the very least. Now, I've seen speculation with regards to tomorrow being perhaps a better day, maybe a little less smoke. It's hard to tell because one thing I noticed today, Joe, is the fact that uh, there were the smoke seems to be coming down in waves, and this particular wave that came down is a fairly dense one, but there are areas either side where it's less. So I don't know how this is all going to time out. The upper air pattern in the east is not changing between now and tomorrow. If you look on the loop, you can pretty well see that if I pulled up the satellite loop from yesterday and pulling it up today, they sort of look the same, at least up in the northeast and in eastern Canada. That storm is still just sitting there and spinning around and spinning around. So the fires that are up well to the north are coming straight down in the northerly flow. That doesn't really start to exit until we get to the weekend.
Yeah, what I have on what I'm sharing right now, I shared this last night on our show, is from the website firesmoke.ca/forecast/current. In other words, this is about as good, I guess, as anyone can get on the World Wide Web. Kind of a future cast of where the smoke is headed or where the smoke is going, and this particular shot shows 4 o'clock this afternoon Eastern Daylight Time. And if we move things along here, now you can see that obviously the darker the shade of orange, the more prolific the smoke is going to be and the more hazardous the air will be as well. I would suppose, let's see, 1, 2, 3. According to this, we are seeing in this particular zone, the New York metropolitan area, something between 20 and 80 parts per million. And then there's stuff here I just do not understand. I apologize, UG/M cubed or whatever, but it shows that 4 o'clock this afternoon, we were, I guess, in a moderate amount of smoke. Although I believe at that time we were seeing like a ridiculous figure. The air quality index was something like 413 on a scale of 0 to 500. But if you use this model, you could see that with time, the smoke presumably is going to thin out. And in fact, if this is right, by midnight, we shouldn't really be seeing quite as much smoke as what we saw through the day today. And this continues to dissipate. Now, again, this, I cannot, I ran across this model yesterday. I'm not even sure, because from what I've been hearing from other sources, tomorrow the smoke is going to be almost as bad as it was today. This is suggesting, however, that the smoke is going to dissipate significantly by 4 a.m. And then as we continue into tomorrow, it appears the smoke tries to make some kind of a comeback here. This is at noontime tomorrow. And then we go to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And again, not all that bad, not terrible, but still out there. And if I move it all the way over to, there was one blank frame there, you could see that here, the projection is that in the area around Philadelphia or just west of Philadelphia, look at this. This is really like 120 to 250 parts per million. This would be for 8 a.m. on Friday morning, and we still have kind of a light to moderate amount of smoke here in the New York metropolitan area. Again, I can't give you the reliability of this particular model, but and then it tries to clear out a bit. But you know what, Joe? We really don't know. We really don't know what's happening. Like if I back off a bit here, I mean, my goodness, look up here. This is upstream from Quebec, and we have that closed low system here near Nova Scotia. So the general flow is from the north, and you'd have to wonder, if in that counterclockwise flow, where's all this going to go on Friday into the start of the weekend? So long as these fires remain active, if they remain active into the weekend, and that closed low remains again close to the coast, we're going to see this continue beyond tomorrow, beyond Friday, and maybe even into the start of the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, as we get into Sunday, the upper air flow becomes more southwest because what's happening is this upper low is taking an extra day to move out. It looked like it was going to start to move out on Friday. Now it's going to start to move out on Saturday, and as a result, everything's delayed by a day. That even pushes, I think, the rain back to Monday rather than coming in Sunday night, depending on how a warm front sets up. The other thing we should mention is the fact that temperatures today did not get out of a lot of spots had a tough time getting above 65.
Right, the smoke was so thick that and I even mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. I was talking about, how when we have a major volcanic eruption, that the aerosol cloud over time actually tends to lower the temperature of the northern hemisphere or the area where the cloud happens to be. And I said, I wonder if the same thing happens with smoke. Well, a microcosm of that happened today. I mean, it should have, for all intents and purposes, gone into the low and mid 70s easily under bright sunshine, but we didn't have bright sunshine. We had quite a bit less in the way of bright sunshine, filtered considerably by all that smoke, and the smoke obviously kept the temperatures down for much of the day. Mid-afternoon, my temperature here in Putnam Valley was only about 63 degrees.
That's just incredible because if we had full sun, we would have been at least in the low into the low and mid 70s. I kind of just I gave I was just looking at the surface map, and it sort of maybe answered my question as to why I didn't maybe get into the smoke yet, and that's because on the surface map, and I'll get myself out of the way, there's actually, as I'm in northeast Georgia, as most of you know, there's a front that runs across southern North Carolina and northern South Carolina stationary boundary that is sitting just to my north. So perhaps, at least for now, that boundary is what kept the smoke from going all the way down into the far southeast and maybe even into Florida. Now that front may sink a little bit further to the south come tonight. At least it's forecast to. So maybe I noticed on your smoke map that there was a heavier concentration moving southward. That maybe I'll get into that here tomorrow.
Well, it's pretty amazing that this is a flow with that closed low. If we did not have these forest fires, these wildfires, I should say, in Canada, this is the kind of flow, a north-northeast flow, that usually means for our part of the country a really transparent, clear sky, and obviously that is not the case. I mean, that's just funneling all of that smoke right on into our area.
Yep.
Thank you, Howard A., for hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you very much, along with, again, our friend Birder Lady for doing that.
And going back to the satellite loop at the moment, there's a band of clouds north of that frontal boundary that runs through Virginia and North Carolina, then swings back through Tennessee, and then arcs northward. You see the clouds from Minnesota down to Missouri are basically moving from north to south, so that gives you an idea. In fact, that whole cloud structure kind of tells you uh, what the upper air winds are doing, and basically doing this, and that's not helpful for us until this upper low, which up until now has not really moved all but just a handful of miles, relatively speaking. But there is a trough that's stretching here, and this is going to be an issue tomorrow and Friday, much like it was yesterday, where we had some scattered showers and thunderstorms that developed, and I think we're going to see that tomorrow and probably again on Friday. This evening we've got some scattered storms from South Carolina. You see all the lightning strikes going on this evening there in parts of southern Georgia, off the Florida East Coast, and then also extending back along the immediate Gulf Coast. Nothing widespread. I mean, it's just sort of, uh, you know, you're getting some daytime development here with little disturbances in the upper atmosphere that are moving along in that overall jet stream pattern. The overall pattern, by the way, the jet is pretty far south. It extends down into the Gulf of Mexico and across Florida. You see the Florida clouds are moving southwest to northeast. We also have action again up in the Rockies in the western plains and out in the western part of the United States. We could check out the radar this evening, and you'll see, first off, there is rain. There is some light rain in upstate New York along and north of I-90, going all the way up beyond the Canadian border and back through Vermont. That is rotating on the backside of the low in New Brunswick. Then you got this gap, and then you've got some rain and downpours across North Carolina, some thunderstorms in coastal South Carolina, and there were some in southern Georgia, but they seem to be weakening. Also off the Florida East Coast, and those seem to be weakening a bit. Scattered storms around southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, back over into east and central Texas, also in West Texas, where we've got a few severe thunderstorm warnings and a flash flood warning that's up in parts of southwest Texas, and a lot of rain showers up from Colorado northward through Wyoming and into Montana, Idaho, Nevada, and back over into California. The Storm Prediction Center, once again, a peppering, Joe, a peppering of marginal risk areas. Southernmost North Carolina and much of South Carolina, the eastern half of Florida. Now, a lot of this may have already played itself out. A marginal risk, West Texas and eastern New Mexico, a sliver of marginal risk in the eastern Dakotas, and then a marginal risk from Idaho, southern Idaho, half of Idaho, into Oregon, northwest Nevada, and northeast California for today. The other thing is, did you notice this? Now, look how they have they, I just think this is kind of funny. They have,
That little
yeah,
that little side thing across Virginia.
Yeah, they shaped like the letter S there.
Yeah.
Boy, that's really detailed. Once upon a time, they probably would have just connected the line that goes across western South Carolina up to about Virginia, and then connected to the Virginia line and have that whole area filled in. But they're really getting really detailed at SPC, which is great. Now here's tomorrow, and we've got general thunderstorms indicated for southern and central New England, much of New York State, much of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, the Delmarva Peninsula, coastal Virginia, North Carolina. You see where the marginal risks are. Southern half of Georgia into South Carolina, South Texas, and into central Texas, the eastern half of the Dakotas, and much of the state of Montana and northern Idaho and eastern Washington. Now, should we speculate on whether there's going to be a last-minute marginal risk put up in the Northeast tomorrow?
They did it yesterday. It was like mid-afternoon, and all of a sudden, but they did that after a couple of places, including my location, at like 8 o'clock in the morning, had loud thunder and brief heavy downpour, and they must have said, "Gee, if it's happening this early in the day, maybe, just maybe, diurnal heating will lead to more active conditions and possible severe weather in the afternoon." We never saw anything yesterday afternoon, I might add, ironically, but yeah,
there were a couple of strong cells that moved across southern Connecticut and Long Island.
Right. They're not going to be. There's not going to be anything organized. no major line, let's say, of severe weather, but they're going to pop here and there.
Well, it might be smoke dependent.
Yeah.
If it cuts the daytime heating again by 10 degrees, maybe there'll be less.
That's a possibility that we may actually see the smoke reduce the possibility. But what they're doing on this map is just, I guess, initially assuming that there is no smoke.
Right. Now for Friday, we have an even larger area of general thunderstorms in central, southern, and western New England, New York State, all of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, and covering most of Virginia and half of West Virginia. Now, I asked the same question: Do we get this winds up being an area of marginal risk? I think there's a chance that we might see it on Friday. I'm not sure about tomorrow, but Friday. You got that trough swinging through, so I'm thinking maybe Friday we might eventually go to a marginal risk here.
There was an interesting paradox this afternoon. I won't mention the station. One of the local TV weathercasters here in New York was promising that the skies would be beautiful blue by the weekend, and then right in the middle of the weathercast, they cut away to Mayor Adams here in New York, and he's up on the podium talking about the smoke condition, and he stresses that no one can tell beyond one day, precisely how much of the smoke is going to dissipate or exactly where the smoke is going. And I said I chuckled to myself. I said, well, here we've got the weather person on this station promising us it's going to be much better over the weekend with blue skies. And now all of a sudden we see the elected official of New York City, the mayor, telling us beyond one day, we don't know where the smoke is going. So,
well, this normally might be the point where one might say that the elected official should, stay out of the weather business or the weather forecasting business. But in this particular case, I agree with him. I don't think there's any way to really know a day to day. I mean, we just have to really just look at what the loops are doing because these
play it by ear.
Yeah, I mean these plumes.
Nowcasting.
Yeah, I mean we thought today would probably be. We saw yesterday on the satellite loop how thick the smoke was. It was going to lead to an even bigger problem today. But you know what? There's spots in there where there's stretches in there, as I mentioned earlier. There's gaps in it. You get these big plumes come in waves. So could it be better? Sure, but I wouldn't. I certainly wouldn't be out there forecasting it. I'm not so confident about Saturday. I think Sunday, I think you'll probably have a good chance that things may be better. But Saturday, I think, is a little dicey until that flow,
Yeah.
that northwest flow breaks down.
For all we know, Saturday and Friday and tomorrow maybe not as bad, but I mean not the same, but almost as bad as what we had today. By the way, you're near Gainesville, right? Gainesville, Georgia?
Yeah, it's about an hour and a half.
Okay. I found another interesting site, which I'm not going to put up on the screen, but
you can, please. If it's a Georgia site, you should.
Well, I could do that.
Put it up. Put it up.
All right. I'll do that. It's I'll do it right now. All right.
Go on. Have something small. I'll have a small steak.
A small steak. This is write it down, folks, if you want it for yourself. Fire.airnow, AIRNOW, fire.airnow.gov. This is a fire and smoke map which shows the general area where the smoke is. It is not like a future cast. It just shows you where the smoke is now. But it is interesting is that if you take your cursor and click on any of the circles, I'm going to back off a bit here just to show you that there are green and yellows and also purples and dark shades of purple, which will give you the air quality index. Case in point, New York. This is near Bridgeport, Connecticut. Hazardous. The air quality index 326 as of this moment in time. This is as of 7 o'clock or 7:30 or just past 8 o'clock now, Eastern Daylight Time. But now, I was mentioning Gainesville, where you are, Joe, or close to where you are. Here it is right here. You're in the yellow. and that indicates that you have moderate air quality. Air quality index 77. Again, if it's 0 to 50, you don't really have anything to worry about. But once
Right.
you go above 50, then it starts getting a little dicey. So you actually have down where you are, all the way down as far south, nothing, of course, like what we have here in New York, but still something. Here's Chattahoochee National
Oh,
Forest.
I actually live right on the edge of the Chattahoochee
Well, there you
National
go. Air
Forest.
quality index 75. So yeah, so there you go. It's
A little bit's gotten in here.
yeah, a little bit indeed. But again, you go back up here to where we are, up in the tri-state area, and look at all those purple squares and purple circles here, and some areas are very dark, like around Stamford, Connecticut. What do they have up there? 334 near Riverside, Connecticut. What do I have? I live about here. Um, Very unhealthy, 294 air quality index. That's near Garrison. That's a town to our right next door, Garrison, New York, 294. So it ain't good up here. It's not so bad down where you are, but even down where you are, it's still somewhat effective. You have to go north and east up toward Boston. Boston, what do they have in Boston? 23 in Chelsea, Massachusetts. So if you go to Boston and points north and east, that's where the good air is across portions of eastern Massachusetts, much of central and northern New England, Maine. They have some very good conditions. What does the gray stand for? What is Halifax getting right now? Oh, air quality not available. So we don't know what it's like up there in Halifax at Lake Major.
Right.
So there you go.
All right. Now I
And
have.
the website again is fire.airnow.gov, and use that. You can figure out for yourself what your local air quality index is for any point in time in the future.
So I figured this might be a good time to use the simulated satellite so we could take a look at that upper low that is sitting right up here somewhere in New Brunswick slash the St. Lawrence, near the St. Lawrence River, and just rotating around. And of course, you see that long jet that comes down from uh, Canada through Minnesota, at least part of the long jet, where the clouds are running right along it, and you got this northerly or northwesterly flow that is holding because it's not getting out of the way. Well, if we move forward through Thursday, that upper low is still there, although it's getting stretched out. It's beginning to weaken just a little bit, and the trough is stretching out. And as the shortwave rotates around on Thursday, again, the scattered showers and thunderstorms could pop up. Of course, it's going to depend on how much daytime heating we get, and that's going to depend on how much smoke we have. Friday, the same, as the trough is still stretched out to our west, but then finally, on Saturday, it starts to pull away. We still have a bit of a northerly flow into Saturday morning, but then you'll notice the clouds to the west start to move in, and then they start to sweep up from the southwest. So that's telling us the upper air winds are going to be going in a completely opposite direction. So that's why I think that maybe Saturday there'll be some smoke, but it'll be improving, and then I'm guessing that by Sunday it should be gone if that wind is going to be southwest. And by the way, uh, this is Monday morning at 8 a.m., and you've got a cold front out to the west with some pretty good enhancement there, and that's going to be bringing showers and storms to the east late during the day on Monday and into Monday night. If we look at the upper air the way it looks, again, we got to cut off that flow from Canada. And we'll roll back, and you can see the upper low here today, just sort of sitting up there in upstate New York, drops to the coast of Maine. By the time we get to Saturday afternoon, still Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock, we've got a northerly wind in the upper atmosphere. But then,
Look at the 18Z Saturday upper air, Joe.
yeah, I mean,
And
still,
and look at and I mean, where's that coming? I mean, the upper level winds are coming from the spot which is smoldering up in Quebec right now. So what is the difference between what we're seeing now? It could still be happening on Saturday.
yeah, I agree. But then you go to Sunday, and this is where you finally get rid of that flow. It's still, by the way, hanging around Sunday morning to some degree in New England. And but then the wind starts to go more west and southwest later Sunday night into Monday, and then we've got to wait for the next upper low to move in. Now the good news with this one is that this is not going to sit in Maine for 4 days. This is going to just continue to move along. So this upper air might be a bit better, be somewhat better for much of next week. Let's hope and pray that is the case. And of course, once again, you'll notice in the latter part of the long range, something again comes out of the Caribbean, and today's run takes it up to New Orleans. So we probably pretty well covered everybody on the Gulf Coast in the last 5 days in terms of what the long range is trying to do with respect to the tropics. I'm going to go to the HRRR just to look at tomorrow, Mr. Rayo. And
Yes.
let's do that. And you will see, I'll go back to the 18Z because that gives us 48 hours worth. And you'll notice that the HRRR, this kind of looks like yesterday. I mean, it actually looks like it produces more cells this time around than it did yesterday. And yesterday, the radars actually were more active than what the models were doing. So the HRRR's got quite a few pop-ups there during the day on Thursday. And then they disappear and then reform again Friday morning in southern New England. You see them there. And then some more pop up. This only goes to 2 o'clock Friday afternoon, but we'll have another round to deal with on that particular day. And then as we move on to Saturday, we'll switch over to the GFS. And you see the GFS has some pop up areas of precip for Friday afternoon and evening. And then they go out and they don't have too much on Saturday. They sort of backed off a little bit on Saturday, but they do still have some in New England and in upstate New York. Sunday looks okay, but here comes the next system. Finally, the traffic jam is broken down. You get some weather systems that start to move from west to east, and it doesn't bring any rain here on Sunday or Sunday night at all. It's got a couple of spotty showers Monday morning, and even late in the day Monday, most of it's in Pennsylvania. Down into eastern Virginia, and then it lifts up during Monday night, and then it goes on by. Not very impressive, by the way, at least from what it's showing here. And then maybe some more showers as sort of a secondary front that comes through on Tuesday night with some showers. And then after that, it looks generally okay. And a quick look at the Father's Day weekend, which right now, if you believe this, will be on the warm and humid side, but hardly any rain. And then, of course, you have your daily hurricane that the GFS likes to make in the long range. Still hasn't come inside 7 days. So I'll be very, just much like I was this morning, Joe. I was very curious when I woke up to look at the first visibles to see where the smoke was, and then when I actually saw it, I was like, oh, this is not good.
No, it was not. It was really a horrible day overall. I mean, you couldn't step outside without smelling the smoke. And as the day wore on, it just kept getting more and more, what's the term, orangey?
Orangey.
Yeah.
All right, we got a nice audience on tonight. We got 163 people and 74 likes. Joe and I love it when we get 100 likes. So if you did like tonight's show, we're not done yet, by the way. But if you do like tonight's show, how about hitting the like button? And see if you could take us over 100. That would be very, very nice. So while that is going on, hopefully, we can play our nightly trivia Briller Jeopardy. Are you all set, folks, for 5 more cities with average highs in the month of June?
I'm all set.
All right. Well, this one's going to be interesting because we've got a few here that are a little different. The first one is Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon. Now, this is tricky.
I don't. The last several years in the Pacific Northwest, the month of June has been exceedingly hot.
Yes.
Now, but that doesn't take into account 30 years worth of long-term averages. So I'll say right for Portland, Oregon, I'm going to say 78.
Well, this is going to be short because I thought that this would take a while. But Rich Rothmansky, Steve Lapointe, William Uber, all hitting it, and Maggie P, all hitting it on the nose at
74.
74.
Wow.
74. Good guesses, guys. Here's the next one. Richmond, Virginia. Richmond, Virginia.
How about 84?
How about 84? That is not the correct answer. James H says 83. Frank Riccio 82. Up. John Melander has already hit it. So has Howard A. Both saying the correct answer, which is 86.
Wow.
86. All right, and Michael Lazara at 86. Rich Rothmansky, you are, first runner-up, so you get 87. And Maggie P got 86 too. Okay, here we go. Next is Rochester, New York, or Rochester, or Rochester.
Rochester.
Rochester, New York.
Would you bring up the? Anyway, I'll say Rochester, New York. I'm trying to remember. We had Buffalo yesterday, didn't we? Or
yes.
80.
Well, Patrick Darcy said 77, and James H has 72. Keith James says 77. Joe Z says 79, but Miss Fowlerite getting it tonight, and Chuck Cardillo guessing it correctly, 78. 78.
Now, what is this with me tonight? I'm coming within like 2 degrees of all of these guesses.
I know. And we're only 5 likes away from 100. So
yes.
that's great. Get us 5 more likes, please. Okay, next on the board is Seattle, Washington. Seattle, Washington.
Well, what did we get? Shows you my mind here. What did we say for Portland? 78?
74.
74. Seattle, how possibly can Seattle be more different or so different than Portland? I'll say 75.
Well, Howard A has gotten it right off the bat, 71. A
Wow.
number of you were dancing around it a little bit. Patrick Darcy just put up 71. The chat folks on the chat board tonight are doing really good. They're doing very well. Okay, last one is Tampa, Florida. Tampa, Florida.
Yeah.
And by the way, I should mention here, Joe, in Blairsville, what's happening is that the last week or so, all the Floridians are leaving Florida and coming up here, which they do every summer to get away from the Florida heat.
Christopedia, you got to be kidding me. 425?
Well, it does feel like that in Florida.
I'll say 87.
87. Well, John Melander says 89. Rosemary Osborne says 90. Joe Z says 89. Keith James II is a little high at 97. William Uber and Patrick Darcy at 92, and Lou Alessi at 92. But we have Rich Rothmansky and Miss Fowlerite hitting it, Joe, at 91.
Wow.
91. I'm very impressed. The chat board did really well. Now, the chat board does okay most nights, but tonight, the chat board folks did really well.
They're standing out tonight.
Yes, they are. Very much so. Well, I did a little, I weed whacked my property the other day. So now I started finally, landscaping. So I decided that because I have so much to landscape, because I don't have I have a lot of woods around me like you do, but I have about a good solid acre and a quarter that's, that I could work with. And it was very overwhelming. So I had the landscaper come. I weeded some of it, but it just was too much for me. So I had the landscaper come, and he did a really great job and just got rid of everything. So now, yet today, I spent the morning putting down uh, phyllox and lavender. So I decided that how I'm going to approach this is that every day I'm going to spend an hour or two just doing one section of the yard at a time. So it might take me the whole month of June. But I got to tell you, Joe, I went to Home Depot, and this is not I'm not saying this is not disparaging about Home Depot. I love Home Depot, but I haven't bought anything. I haven't bought any plants in quite a while. I can't get over how expensive they are.
Oh, everything is expensive now.
I bought perennials, but they were all basically $10 a pop.
Oh.
So I spent $135 on perennials. And
Miss Ballery wants to know on the chat board, by the way, can you come and weed whack my patio area? I need it done.
no, I don't do long distance weed whacking. If it's just your patio, you should be able to do it by hand. You know, I did it by hand. And then I couldn't do it anymore. It was too much. I had too much overgrowth. I had all these. I had some of these. I don't know what they were, but they were all like 3, 4, and 5 feet tall, and they had very shallow roots. So you just basically had to grab them and pull them, and they would come right out. So it was a lot, but it was relatively easy. But the rest of it was all right along the immediate, low growth. So I just couldn't do that. I'd be there forever trying to get rid of it. But yeah, plants are expensive. I just was really shocked at how expensive they are. And grass seed. I didn't buy any grass seed, but my friends were telling me how expensive. Grass seed's like $100 for a bag.
I'm not sure if I might be wrong here, but I don't think Renata's even gotten started on her tomato plants yet. I haven't even bought the tomato plants. I think last year at this time we were already had them in the pots, and they were already growing and growing quite quickly.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I just wanted to share that with everybody. I was working out in my garden today, and I'll be working out in my garden tomorrow and Friday because there's no rain in the forecast here
Well,
for the
it's a
next
good
2
thing you're
days.
not up here working on your garden, because if it is, you probably after 5 minutes you'd probably have to go back inside with a N95 mask or something.
Oh, I
It's
know.
bad here. So
All right, so we'll put an end to this tonight, and thank everybody for being here. Thank you for the 100 plus likes, and we will be back tomorrow night at 7:35 Eastern Time. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Let me get myself out of the way here. The revolutionary Tempest weather system. You can get it and join the fastest growing observing network on the planet. The link is on the pin to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you do decide to purchase something, use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show, and you get 10% off. And also brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com. And just very quickly, Krishnapedia brings up Belmont is this Saturday. The Belmont.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And here's a question. Tonight, the Yankee game, the White Sox Yankee game, was canceled because of the smoke. Now, if we have the same kind of conditions on Saturday that we did today, what do you think, Joe? Would they run the Belmont on Saturday, or would they postpone it to the following Saturday? They've never done it.
They won't postpone it till the following Saturday. I think they'll do everything they can to run that race on Saturday.
Belmont Park has what, a capacity of 150,000 or?
About 100,000.
Yeah.
It's a big place.
Well,
they don't have seats for 100,000, but the park can certainly easily fit 100,000 people.
It'll be interesting
And
to
they're not
see.
going to get 100,000 because there's no Triple Crown at stake. So
Right.
they'll probably have a crowd of about 30 to 40,000.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what they do on Saturday. If they now, my wife says no, they would cancel it.
All right.
Well, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what
They're
happens.
usually pretty good about stopping races when the weather's too cold and too windy. If it's a danger to the horses or the jockeys, they will, they will cancel, they'll cancel it. But I don't think they're going to cancel it ahead of time. They're just going to wait till the day of and see what's going on.
Oh, and I don't know how many wrestling fans there are on our chat board, Joe, or those people who are watching right now. Sad news: the Iron Sheik has passed away at the age of 81.
I saw that.
The former world heavyweight champion, Iron Sheik, is no more. So, if you're a wrestling fan, you can bow your heads. And at the wrestling arenas around the country, they'll probably be ringing the bells tonight for the Iron Sheik. Anyway,
thank you, Birder Lady and Howard A, for hitting
yes.
the super chat tip jar, and we will see you all tomorrow. Good night.
Good night, folks.